Wake 'em up. Hi, how's it going? It's me, Julio. Today I got with me a special guest. I got Dr. Eric, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and explain what he does to glorify God. Go ahead, Dr. Eric.
All right. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate you inviting me onto the show tonight for what the conversation we had before we came on air. And I really appreciate all that you do. And, you know, the world, not only our country, but the world needs people that have that fire for the gospel and getting the gospel to the lost. And it does my heart really good to see people. I don't know how old you are. I don't
35.
Holy cow. Well, you don't look a day over 36. Just to be honest with you. I'm kidding. You look I thought you were younger than that. But anyway, it's good to see people, younger people doing.
We got to tell my wife that too. I need you to tell my wife that, Dr. Eric. I think because of my beard, I say, hey, look, people think I'm 29 or something. I don't know,
Yeah, well, I have the opposite problem because when I let it grow, I don't let it grow all on the cheeks. I let it grow down like a goatee or whatever, and it's got great. I look scraggly. I look like an old man. So I've decided, and when I see myself in the mirror in the morning, I'm like, you need to shave. So then I shave and I grow. Anyway, okay. Yeah. So what do I do? Well, I'm a former educator. I used to be a teacher. I have a radio show on Blog Talk Radio on the Global Patriot Radio Network called The Cross and the Crescent Discussion Group. I have a YouTube channel called The Cross and the Crescent Discussion Group. And I also have a website, believe it or not, called thecrossandthecrescent.com. And what we do is we have a panel of people every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time and, every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we talk about various topics that deal specifically with Christianity and Islam and the differences and the difficulties between the two faiths, what the main differences are and how problematic Islam is, not only from a theological perspective, but also historical perspective, a moral perspective. And, we always want to look at a religion by the fruit that it bears, and some of the fruit that we see it bearing across the globe can be pretty scary at times. So we get, every now and then, I won't say every Sunday or every Tuesday, we have Muslims on the show. But we do have Muslims that do come on the show, and we try to be as engaging and respectful as we possibly can. But I've found that when we do that, a lot of times, unfortunately, it'll turn into a shouting match, and the anger that you get from these people is, it can be palpable at times. But we do our best, and it's not a big channel. It's not, I'm not all that in a bag of chips. I don't try to make myself out to be. But we do try to reach as many people as we possibly can, and we're out there 2 days a week. We get quite a few listens on the Blog Talk Radio side of the house now, and we're also getting probably about 150, 200 views per show on the YouTubes when we do our live streams, and it's all live streamed right there on YouTube.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, listen, I encourage you we got to give people the gospel, and if you don't and I don't speak the gospel to a Muslim, who will? Who's going to have these conversations? And I found that most Christians, when they know someone has a different faith or different religion that they're practicing, they are afraid. I even heard some evangelists, unfortunately, they're like, man, this is just too difficult. It's going to be too hard of a conversation. I'd rather not just waste my time. I'm going to speak to, I'm like, wait a minute. If we don't reach them, who will? If we believe that they're in error, that they're in a false religion, and Jesus Christ and his finished work is the truth, who's going to speak the truth to them if we don't? So may God give you the strength to keep doing that.
Right. Well, one of the great things about it is today there's so many different venues in which you can do that and you can engage. I spend some time over on a new app called Clubhouse these days.
Oh wow!
And you can go into these rooms and have various discussions with people ranging from anything from money to religion. Of course, I gravitate to the religious part of that those rooms. And as a matter of fact, right before I got on the show tonight, I was in a room that had a Black Hebrew Israelite in there, and we were having some interesting discussions as far as the genealogies were concerned, with the noetic dispersions and what type of proof is there of all these things. And it was always kind of fun to do that.
Well, I want to definitely get into that one. But before we do, what do you consider one of the most powerful topics that you have addressed so far in your show?
The most powerful. Well, we talk about so many different things. We've talked. If I was to go back and look, that the most popular thing that we did talk about of all things was the Shroud of Turin. That's where I've had the most views, where people have gone in and I had, and I'll be honest with you, when I did that show, I had people come on to the show that were on the panel that day that were some of the most prominent experts on the shroud itself.
Wow.
And I didn't even realize it until after the show was over. And I started, Googling these guys, and I'm like, holy cow. Now, these guys are published, they're peer reviewed. They speak at conferences. And
what is the shroud, for anybody that doesn't know? What do you mean by that?
Okay, well, the Shroud of Turin is thought to be the burial cloth of Christ. It bears an image of an individual who has gone through the process of the passion that Christ did, the crucifixion, and it has an image on it that nobody knows how this image was able to get onto this cloth. It has a history dating back actually to the 1st century. All the way through Edessa, going up into Turkey, going over into France, and then now, or Savoy, France, and then now over into Turin, Italy. It is the most studied artifact in history. I got to see it. I'm bragging.
Wow.
I'm a retired Army Master Sergeant, and one of the tours that I served when I was in the Army was Italy. It was tough duty, but somebody had to do it. And I gladly took one for the team on that one. I'm being facetious, of course. But when it was on display in the year 2000, my family and I were able to go up and to see it firsthand. It's just a phenomenal artifact is what it is. Now, I personally think that it is the actual burial cloth of Christ for a number of reasons. Chiefly among them is the fact that the image itself is only on the outermost fibers of the outermost threads of the cloth itself. It's not like it's penetrated into the cloth, like it's been painted on, burned on, or anything. It's just this superficial discoloration of those fibers. And nobody knows how that could have happened. Even using the most advanced equipment and technology today, nobody knows how that could have happened. Wow. And I think this is one of those God things that wouldn't be just like God to leave us some type of evidence, some type of proof that he did in fact raise his son from the dead. And I think this is what it did. We've had other shows. I mean, we've had shows.
Hold on, but let me ask you one quick question on that one though. As a skeptic that might say, well, how does something last that long? About 2,000 years,
right?
What would your response be to that?
Well, we have all kinds of artifacts that have lasted a lot longer. We have all kinds of, as a matter of fact, we do have the type of weave, the fabric that was known to be used in the 1st century Palestine. We have artifacts of that. One of the greatest complaints against the shroud is a carbon dating experiment that was done in 1988 that dated it to the mid 12th or 13th century. I can't remember. I think it's 1230 AD is what it was dated to. But even that has been debunked recently. And there's all other kinds of ways where you can date the material based on the deterioration of certain atoms within the fibers themselves, where you can see that it can be dated clear back to the 1st century. So gotcha. And then plus, if it's the burial cloth of Jesus Christ and you are in possession of that, I think you're going to take pretty good care of it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Jesus is buried in this. I think we're going to put this one in the closet and not take it out for a while.
Yeah,
but
take it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there are other things that we do on the show. We do provide a pretty tough criticism of Islam itself. We look at the Quran, provide a pretty strong critique of the Quran. Criticisms as far as the historicity of it. We look at the inconsistencies that we find in it. We look at how it's anachronistic, meaning it has places and things and people that are out of place that have no business. They have a Samaritan helping Aaron build the golden calf at Sinai. Now, if we know our biblical timeline, Sinai is 1450 BC. Samaria didn't come into existence until the Assyrian Empire created in 721 BC. So you got like a 700-year difference there. So you can look at we provide a pretty tough criticism of the Quran. We look at the life of Muhammad, mainly from a moral perspective. If you look at the man's life and you look at some of the things that he did, one of the chief things that he did that people today, and even when I if you ask a kid that that you teach, the man was 54 years old when he married his child bride Aisha when she was 9, and consummated that marriage, and that in of itself is enough to make people go ooh. And it kind of turns it away and say, well, maybe he wasn't this moral pattern of conduct. And then plus we look at the theological challenges that it has against Christianity. If you look in the chapter 4, verse 157, it says that Jesus Christ was never crucified.
That's right.
And when you look at history itself, the most documented event from antiquity is the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. You just can't get away from it. Now, we all freely admit that the resurrection of Christ is a statement of faith, matter of faith, even though that there's strong evidence for that itself. Yeah. But you cannot deny the crucifixion of Christ. Well, the Quran does, and so we talk about a lot of issues that deal with that, and then we also talk about Christian issues. The last thing that we did talk about was. It was the crucifixion, as a matter, or the resurrection. We talked about that. We used, I don't know if you're familiar with an apologist by the name of Gary Habermas. Yes. But okay, so he spent a lot of time discussing the resurrection. So we discussed, we went through his what he calls his minimalist facts theory, where he presents just a minimum facts from Paul's writings in Galatians and in First Corinthians. And we do things like that, and then plus we have all these great discussions. We have this panel of people. We have people from England. We have people from people from New York. We have people from Canada. We got some biker from Chicago, and it's just a great bunch of people. It's a lot of fun to be there.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this into in regards to the resurrection. The resurrection of Christ, Paul is mentioning that about 500 people seen him. So obviously that's not going to be everyone, right? But we do have documentation that the disciples of Jesus believed that they seen Jesus resurrect from the dead, which, by the way, being a Christian at that time, there would be nothing to gain out of that except for persecution, meaning being put in jail and put to death. So to lie and to say that they're lying, that they didn't really see Jesus coming from the dead, that'd be crazy. There's nothing to gain out of it. And actually that would have explained, because at one point when Jesus is being put on the cross, remember the disciples dispersed, they're everywhere, but all of a sudden they seen him. Now these disciples had this boldness and they're proclaiming the gospel like never before. So I definitely, without a doubt, they seen Jesus rise from the dead. That's the only explanation of them having that boldness, that courage, So
this is exactly what we would see is based on the criteria of embarrassment. The apostles in all 4 gospels are presented as these bumbling fools, can't get anything correct. And then after you're right, they were dispersed at Gethsemane, but they were, and this is one of the arguments that Muslims make, is that well, there were no eyewitnesses. None of the apostles saw Jesus actually crucified, which simply isn't true, because if you remember, the apostle John was at
John.
the
Yep.
cross with Jesus' mother Mary.
Right.
So that, of course, they don't let facts get in the way. And then after they see Jesus rise from the dead, the risen Christ, their whole demeanor changes. They go out and they change the entire world. Well, this is exactly what, if you saw somebody that was dead and now is alive, you are going to go tell somebody, and you're going to go tell somebody with the boldness and the forcefulness that the apostles did. And this is why you can count on the
resurrection,
the gospel, right? The gospel message as far as the resurrection concerns being true.
Amen. Amen. Amen.